Hi, this is Meredith Salenger, and you're listening to the FSF Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the FSF Podcast. I'm Tim, and joining me today in the co-host chair is good old producer John, which, by the way, when we do things in StreamYard, I'm either pointing right at him or I'm pointing at a blank spot on the wall. Either way, on my screen, he's that way. But we're glad to have producer John in the hot seat today to welcome our guest, who's an amazing actress that you've seen and heard in some shows that you have loved over the years. Perhaps you remember her from Dream a Little Dream, Lake Placid, Race to Witch Mountain, or perhaps you know her like I know her best as the voice of Jedi Padawan Barriss Offee in Star Wars Clone Wars, and most recently, Tales of the Empire. I am, of course, talking about Meredith Salenger. Welcome to the show, Meredith.
Yay, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I am very, very excited because this is probably the worst kept secret in podcasting is that I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And so every time I get a chance to talk to somebody in the Star Wars universe, I get a little giddy. You can't see it, but my feet cannot sit still right now. I'm very excited. I've always really liked the character of Barriss Offee, and I liked her story, and I've always felt that there was something just kind of, non-finalized with her story, just the way everything stopped. And I don't know how many times I'm going to hold my hand and shake it like that, but we're going to keep going. But anyway, so I love to talk to people who are making the things out in the galaxy far, far away. That's where I love to find out about. But so my first question for you is, and it has, of course, to be about Star Wars and Barriss Offee and all those things. What does it mean personally for you to be part of the Star Wars universe, and what was your entry point into the fandom?
Well, actually, I think when I first saw Star Wars, it came out in 1977. I remember being at a movie theater with my dad, and it was the first time we ever went to see a movie where there was a line of people around the entire block. I'd never seen that before in my life, and I was like, wow, this is about to be something huge. This is like it felt very much like there's a change in films. It was like the first film I ever saw that happen to. And of course, obsessed with the movie, obsessed with Han Solo, obsessed with R2, love C3PO, love everyone, I love the movie so much. And then of course I saw them all. But when Dave Filoni asked me to play Barriss, I was so excited. Well, I think first of all, I'm sure you guys have talked about Dave Filoni before. Yes?
Once or twice, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously Dave was a huge fan of Star Wars and became, the main dude now. But one of Dave's favorite things besides Star Wars is wolves. And yes. I did a movie called The Journey of Natty Gann back in 1984 when I was 14 years old. And it's a Disney film about a girl and a wolf traveling across country during the Depression. And the relationship between my character of Natty Gann and the wolf was really intense and amazing. And I think that was sort of the reason, I think that's why Dave brought me in, because he loves wolves so much, and we have bonded over this wolf connection. And then just to be this character is so cool because, first of all, I love this new world that he created, starting with Ahsoka, and the Clone Wars really started this whole entire other universe. I mean, same universe, but new stories of new characters.
You're right. Right.
And I know that Barriss Offee was in a live action. She never spoke or anything in the film.
Right. Just a brief glimpse, almost a cameo.
But then, so I didn't really know who she was. And then Dave, of course, gives these amazing backstories of all the characters. And she felt so similar to me in that, she starts as a Padawan learner under Luminara Unduli. And she's very by the book. Like, she wants to please, she wants to do it right. She wants to learn, the old Jedi text. She wants to follow it to the T. She's very follow the rules kind of a girl. And that's sort of who I am too. I really like to do things perfectly and, be good, and everything based in like a very strong morality and a good moral center and all of those things. And I think as Barriss spends time with Anakin and Ahsoka, because Ahsoka and Barriss are like best friends
Right.
as learners together. They're learning together while Anakin and Luminar are their masters teaching them. And but of course, Anakin has a much different way of looking at the world, and Ahsoka is, this sassy little sprite thing. And, they sort of think outside the box and they do these things
Right.
that are not exactly by the book. And I think Barriss hanging out with them sort of started to learn that she could also kind of maybe a little bit think outside the box, which then leads her down a path of really getting stuck in her own head about what she thinks Jedi are supposed to be, and ultimately leads her to, unfortunately, betray Ahsoka, but to try
Right.
to make a point to keep the Jedi on track with the ancient Jedi text.
I like it. Yeah, I've always loved that storyline. I thought it was always very cool because of the juxtaposition between Barriss and Ahsoka and what they're each going through. One pretending to be part of the Jedi Order, one getting kicked out of the Jedi Order, and then finding out the one who was pretending was the one that was behind everything. So I've always liked that story, and I actually just watched that a little bit ago again on my umpteenth rewatch of the Star Wars saga, but that's a whole nother discussion for another time. So
I'm putting my glasses on so I can match you guys.
Oh,
excellent.
So now we're all twins.
There we go.
yeah. Now,
We're all dashing.
yes. So I grew up reading comic books. So I love a good origin story. Every character, hero, villain, whoever it is, they come from somewhere. So in the life of Meredith Salenger, what got you started in the performing arts, and what helps keep you going?
Oh, that's a good question. What got me started in it? I'm born and raised in Malibu, California. My parents are real people. My dad's a dentist. My mom was an interior decorator, professional people. And I went to a public school out in Malibu, but there were a couple young actors that I went to school with. Two of whom happened to be Robin and Rachel Bush from Little House on the Prairie. They were the twins that played the young Carrie. There's Mary, there's Half Pint, and then there's Carrie.
Yeah.
And one night I slept over at their house when I was, I think, 7 years old. And I mean, I've always been performing in front of my friends and family. I was always the singer. I was always the one who put on shows when my parents had friends over. I always was loving dressing up and being silly, and loved to be the center of attention and singing and all those things. And anyway, I had a sleepover at their house one night, and when I came home, I was like, Mom, I want to be an actress. And she was like, well, you have to take acting class. You have to do this. Like, you can't just be. And so I started taking acting class, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever, playing roles. I remember it was the kind of acting class where you weren't like trying to get a commercial. You weren't like trying to win. It was more like, we want to really act. I remember the acting teacher just said one day, she was like, all of you kids get in the front of the room, and everyone lay down except Meredith. And then she looks at me and she says, you just got in a plane crash and all your friends died. And he was basically
boy. Whoa.
And just like the tears and the crying. And it was just, I loved it. I thought it was fabulous. And anyway, so I loved acting. And then I met Robin, and Rachel introduced me to their agent, and she signed me right there. And I think it wasn't too long after that I got the movie Annie, with Albert Finney and Carol Burnett. And then I didn't really start. Oh, well, the way I got the movie Annie was because there was a huge audition for orphans, and everyone had to dance. So there was a dancing audition, and there were about 500 girls in one big auditorium kind of thing. And I have an older sister. She's 17 months older. She's nothing like me. She's very shy. She likes to be behind, she doesn't like to be the center of attention in any way. Don't even sing happy birthday to her. She can't take it. But she's an incredible ballerina, and she's an incredible dancer. And so when the audition came, I just took her with me, and she was like, I was like, you might as well just dance and just see what happens. Anyway, the choreographer at the end of the thing was like, he looked at all the girls and he's like, you, and you. And he picked my sister and he did not pick me. And I was devastated. I was like in tears and mortified. So I went to go watch my sister on set. All the orphans were dancing and singing. And I was sort of just like in the corner with my head in my hands. And John Huston walked by and he saw me sitting there and he's like, we need another orphan. Come on. And he put me in the movie and they put dirt on my face and put me in rags. And I end up more in the movie than my sister does. And then they they recast. Anyway, that was sort of how I started. And then, and then I just started getting after the Journey of Natty Gann for Disney. I just sort of started getting movies offered to me until I had to go away to college, and I took 4 years, decided to go away to college. And then I didn't really start voiceovers until later in my life. I had a friend who did voiceovers. She's a very sexy voice. She has that like raspy voice where they're like, ooh, kids, they're good. Like just this very sexy deep voice. And she's like, you should do voiceover. And I said, but my voice is like a little girl. And she's like, yeah, you could do like Barbie's hair changes color in water, like that kind of a thing. So I started, and then it started to roll around. And shockingly enough, I ended up with an actor who does a lot of voiceovers and loves comics and is a Star Wars nerd, and it's sort of all full circle.
Seems fitting.
It's great when things work out that way. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of Star Wars, let's go back real quick to Star Wars. And because now we reached out to you because you've got a great track record and there's a lot of things that we could talk about. But again, as we mentioned, the worst kept secret in podcasting is I'm a huge Star Wars fan and I want to talk more about Star Wars. So more Star Wars. Here we go. Tales of the Empire and Barriss Offee episodes. In particular, I enjoyed those 3 episodes more than the Morgan Elsbeth episodes. Were both everything I wanted in Barriss's story, and somehow yet not what I wanted. And I only say that because it blew a tremendous hole in a theory that I was just hanging on to. I had a theory in my head and it is now totally destroyed, but I'm okay with that. My theory is that Barriss Offee became a Night Sister, not a Night Sister, excuse me. Night Sister is somebody else that you voiced. Inquisitor, yeah. I was also thinking of your IMDb resume. I know that you voiced a Night Sister
in Rebels. I did a Night Sister.
Yeah, so I had Night Sister on the brain. But yeah, became an Inquisitor, and then we see her again as Marok in Ahsoka. That was my theory.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, that's got to be Barriss. That's Barriss. Yes, that's totally Barriss.
So many people thought that was what that was.
Oh yeah.
But regarding Barriss Offee in Tales of the Empire, first of all, you catch her when she's in prison after the Jedi have imprisoned her for bombing the Jedi Temple, and she's betrayed them, and so she's sitting in what she thinks is a Jedi-run prison, and we see her as Order 6, she's looking out the window of the prison and seeing what's happening to Order 66 and realizing that all of the Jedi are being killed when one of the Inquisitors comes in and offers her a chance to be an Inquisitor. And there are so many ways it could have gone. I mean, I think we're over spoilers now, but
oh yeah, we're well past.
There was a time when I thought she would sort of stay with her evil side a little bit longer. But I think her ultimate intention in the Clone Wars was, I think she really has a moral center. And even though she used violence to accomplish her task of trying to say, hey, Jedi, stop using violence. You're going more toward a military thing and less of a peacekeeping thing. She did the wrong thing, and I think she had time to sit and stew about it in jail. But I do think that there's more to the story of Barriss. Obviously, there's a big reckoning that she needs to have with Ahsoka. I think there are hints in the Tales of the Empire for certain things to come, and my own, people catch things or don't catch things, or
Hmm.
I'm not going to say anything, and I don't know what's to come. Only Dave Filoni knows whatever it is in the
Sure.
future. But
Understood.
but yes, I feel like there's a lot to her story that could be explored, and a lot that we thought would be one way and went a different way. But I just really like who she is.
Absolutely. As I was watching Tales of the Empire, because I've always wondered what happened to her after that Republic Tribunal, and she was, because the last time we see her is just that cutoff point, and there was nothing else. So I've always wondered what happened to her, and I love, even though these are shorts, and we get a quick glimpse of kind of at this stage this is what happens here, this stage this is what happens here, this stage this is what happens here. I like the fact that it has this quick, this quick arc of being able to see her going back to the light side. What
Yes,
I would love to see is more of her in that role in the final episode as the healing mother.
yes.
And
Well, they make such a huge gap of time from,
correct, yeah,
so there is so much more during that to see how she got there, what she went through. Did she slip again? Like, where does it go? There's
yeah,
tons to be explored before she gets to that place, and there's tons to be explored after it as well. Um, we don't know if she is dead when Lynn carries her out. We don't know if she can be healed.
right,
We don't know if there is a future where she meets up with Ahsoka, or if they've met before then. Like, what happened for her to get to that place? There's still so many questions,
yeah,
um, which is amazing, because it would be great if those things could be explored more, because I love playing her.
absolutely, yeah. And the great thing is right now with the way that Star Wars is, if Dave decides that she has enough plot armor, she's alive. So
Exactly. Yeah.
lightsaber stabs don't mean what they used to mean back in the day.
Yeah.
But
And if she's a
uh,
healer, can she take her arm and maybe
right,
heal herself?
right, can she heal herself? That's a great question. So yeah, I was very happy to see where the story went, even though it meant that I was wrong about a lot of predictions that I had, and I'm okay with that. I don't mind being wrong, especially when the story that replaces what I had in my own head canon is so much better.
Well, that's why
And
Star Wars is so fun, because I think everyone has an opinion. Like, oh my God, like, there's always those, what happens with her character next? What happens with what,
right,
everyone's always going to speculate, and it's exciting for the fans. And then you see what happens, and it's just like edge of your seat stuff.
I agree, I agree. Yeah, it's just there's John and I have this saying that every time that we have questions about Star Wars, you just have to wait, because the only way to answer those questions is with more Star Wars.
Right,
And so
exactly.
and
Yeah,
so
Answering that, what happened to Barriss after she got thrown in jail, took a long time.
yeah,
But
yeah. So it'd be interesting to see what we can do in that, because there's, even between episode 1 and 2 of of the Tales of the Empire for her story, there's a lot of detail and a lot of information that's left out.
yeah,
From 2 to 3, there's a huge gap. So if they wanted to come back and retouch those stories, there's so much that could be covered and so
so
much
much.
that could be talked about. And for me, and I know a lot of other people who feel the same way I do, that would be just thrilled to have more Barriss Offee content, because we liked what we saw in Clone Wars. There was some confusion about what was happening with her during the whole bombing stuff, and
Yeah.
then a little bit of, hey, what happened to Barriss?
Also,
So now
like,
we have
yeah, it
that
would be
answer.
nice to see what was happening with her right before the bombing, like even how she got Asajj Ventress's lightsabers. And there's stuff. There's a lot of
Oh yeah,
time chunks to check out. But I really do. I really would love to see some scenes again between Barriss and Ahsoka.
I agree. And even like, with Barriss, what convinced her to move towards the dark side and doing the things that she did with the bombing? How did she plan it? How did she get what she, do all those things? There's a lot of little tidbits that could be explored, and Yeah, there's a whole lot of information in Barriss out there that could be answered, and I know many fans would love to see that answered, and we would love to hear your voice as Barriss again. So it'd be
Yeah,
fantastic for all the way around.
I would love to do it.
A lot of times we fixate on the larger, more widely known roles of our favorite performers, but sometimes the smaller, less popular roles are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, doing research for today, I came across this home movie production from
Oh,
2020 of The Princess Bride, and I
yes.
checked IMDb and Wikipedia because you play Count Rugen in Part 9, correct?
Yes, it was so fun. Well, this was during COVID. Um,
Yeah.
Jason Reitman thought everybody's home alone, no one's doing anything, and he thought it would be great to remake The Princess Bride and from beginning to end, the entire movie, and give the same role to like five different people. Every character is in multiple scenes, but he
Mhm.
sort of gave all his favorite actors um, one scene. So you might see um, oh gosh, you might see Jason Segel playing Andre the Giant, and then in the next scene you see someone else playing it, or Taika
Mhm.
Waititi's in it, and Patton is in it, and he plays the Wallace Shawn role with John Hamm in the great moment where they're talking about poison. If I drink this, this kind of thing. And our daughter Alice played Buttercup, so she played the Robin
Oh,
Wright
that's cool.
role.
Yeah.
It was just so much fun, and the part with the "I am Inigo Montoya," you killed my father, prepare to die. Everyone was just using props that they had at home. So he's supposed to have a sword, of course, but the guy who did it, I'm forgetting who did it. Was it Pedro Pascal?
I would have to
Anyway,
look
the
it up.
person who did it had like a tennis racket or an umbrella. It's so fun and funny and campy, but there is
Hmm.
one moment that's just the most beautiful. um, Rob Reiner, at one point, who directed The Princess Bride, at the very end of the movie, he ends up playing the Fred Savage role where he's in the bed, and his father, Carl Reiner, plays the grandpa role and is reading him a story. And Rob Reiner says to his dad, at the end of the movie, "Can you read that to me again?" And the grandpa says, "As you wish." And it's just this beautiful moment between father and son, and Rob, of course, directed the movie. And then his dad died a few days later. Like that was the last time he was ever
Oh, wow.
on camera. So the last time Carl Reiner was ever in a movie or anything was that scene, and it's just overwhelmingly heartbreaking and beautiful. But it really is a great. It is. It's so fun. You should find it.
Yeah, I had a
It's
blast watching.
highly entertaining.
But
Highly
literally
entertaining.
every huge star, every Charlize Theron is in it, and
Mhm.
Malkovich he's in the scene that I'm in, and it's crazy.
It really was, and I had so much fun watching it. But I have a slightly dangerous question here
Oh, let's
because
hear it.
Princess Bride is one of those movies that's oftentimes considered too sacred to ever be remade.
Yes, I agree, but it was done with a humorous spin, so
It was.
it wasn't like redone.
Right.
No one's going to remake The Princess Bride again. No one will ever make it as magically as it was. But this was different because it was like the COVID home version, and it's kind of funny.
It was.
So
But is there a role out there that you'd like to take a shot at for the sake of a new interpretation? As we get different actors doing Shakespeare and in musicals, is there
right.
something you'd like to try that you haven't had a chance to?
Look, I mean, if they were going to remake something, everything Sally Field has ever been in, like Norma Ray, I would want to. I want to be the role like Deborah Winger in Urban Cowboy, or like these are the roles that I loved so much. I don't think anything should ever be remade of what I just said, but those are the roles that I gravitate towards. But my all-time dream, biggest dream I could ever have, that I really want to do, is I have to do a Muppet movie. I want to be in the Muppet. I want to be in a Muppet movie. I want to be surrounded by the Muppets. I want to act with them. I want to see the Electric Mayhem. I want to be on their tour bus. I want to be at their concert. I just want to. It's my all-time favorite thing. I actually got married at Henson Studios because I'm so obsessed with the Muppets, and we actually tried to get the Electric Mayhem, Dr. Teeth, and the Electric Mayhem to play our wedding.
Oh,
That would have been fantastic.
yeah.
But the Muppets are my big, you're a Star Wars nerd. I love Star Wars too, but you know,
No, I get it.
as far as fandom goes, I'm a Muppet girl.
No, that's
Good
I
to
get
know.
it.
Yeah, I
You know,
love
there's a way that we could remake something and include you in a Muppets movie.
Well, I mean, we can't remake it. We don't.
Well,
have
we
the-
can't remake it, but
Like take
we
a
could put
movie and put all the other characters as the Muppets and put me
one
as
of them that one of
yeah.
one of the things that's been suggested is if the only way that it could be plausible to ever remake The Princess Bride is as a Muppets movie,
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
which I would pay good money to see.
Right. Or the movie 9 to 5, and I would be the Lily Tomlin role, and then the Muppets would be everybody else.
Okay. That would be great.
That would.
Piggy as Dolly's role. Yeah, that would be. Oh boy. Yeah, that could be highly entertaining.
I mean, the Muppets even did a Star Wars thing.
They did?
Yeah, didn't the Muppets do a Star Wars adventure? Didn't they?
Well, I mean, there's pigs in space.
Yeah, but
Mark
they're.
Hamill's in the show,
I
too.
feel like I've seen Kermit dressed as Han Solo. I feel like I've seen video of them. I could be wrong. Maybe it was on the Muppet Show. Maybe they did like a little spoof of Star Wars or something. I don't remember.
I think that's probably more probable.
Yeah,
it was something in the show, but I don't think there's been a full.
Right. Maybe it was just a
of it.
skit in the show, but I know.
But either way, it's still entertaining.
Yeah.
There isn't much that the Muppets can do that I go, yeah, probably shouldn't have done that. 95% of everything I think they've ever touched, I'm like, yes, please, more.
Exactly. Same.
So, Kermit, he's an animal. Those are my two. So, yeah. But yeah. What was it? Carrie, and I never can pronounce his last name.
Elways.
Yes.
Elways. Yeah, I should know that, but I didn't. But I think it was when somebody suggested it to him that the movie needed to be remade. The quote was, "There's a shortage of perfect movies in this world. Let's not waste those."
Yes. Although Carrie is in the remake also. I think he plays in Humperdinck maybe or Inigo Montoya. I don't know. But Carrie has a role in the home version, not as Wesley though.
Right. It's been a while since I've seen. I need to go back and watch that again. But that was very entertaining. Yeah, I enjoyed. All right, let's move along to this question here. So we've talked about Star Wars. We've talked about the Muppets. We've talked about Princess Bride. But you're on a podcast now, and you used to have a podcast.
Correct.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because one of the things I notice is that I've been married for 26 years. Marriage is not easy, and I can only imagine and assume that a marriage with any type of public spotlight is also not easy, because of people being people. So that increases the challenges from time to time. But I follow both you and your husband, Patton Oswalt, on your social media channels, on Instagram especially. And I love watching the way that you two interact with each other. Your family interacts. It's very heartwarming and just fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I have enjoyed most in doing my research for you, once I did not realize you had a podcast. I found it. It's called "Did You Get My Text?" It's just, I love that it's a little bit of everything, and you and Patton are just sitting there talking about text messages you've sent back and forth. And did you see that? And it's just so great to it's a lot of it is, and I thought about my wife and I, because we text each other and message each other all day long. Hey, did you? And it's literally a conversation we've had.
Everyone has that. Like everyone says, "Oh, hey, did you get my text?" And like, which one? The one about the thing. Did you get my text? And with friends, with everything, like, And so it was sort of like, because throughout the day we would text each other, like what was happening politically, did our daughter get her lunch at school, like everything. It's just we live in a house, and he has his office and I have my office, and we're both at our desks, but we're both home. And so we're and then we'll see each other in the kitchen. I'm like, "Oh, did you get my text?" There was even a time once we were in bed and we were back to back, sort of. I was on my phone, like scrolling, and he was on his phone, kind of scrolling. We're just in bed. And he's like, oh my God, you have to look at this. And I was like, oh, I said, show it to me. He's like, I don't want to turn over. I was like, well, I don't want to turn over. I'm in the perfect position. I go, just text it to me. So we were actually in bed and he sent me a text just because like my neck and my, the covers were perfect. I didn't want to move. But yes, you said at the beginning that, it is hard. Patton and I do not fight. We don't yell. We don't fight. I mean, obviously there'll be like occasional disagreements of like, oh my God, you got the
Sure.
wrong yogurt or whatever. But we don't fight. But we were doing the podcast during COVID, well, at the end of COVID, and we were doing it from home. And there's all this technology that you have to like upload it, and the microphones have to be, and everything has to be synced and has to be quiet and blah, blah. And it was very confusing how to do it. And I'd be like, no, you have to do it like this. And he's like, I'm doing that. And it was the only time we would ever fight in our entire lives was before the podcast and then after the podcast, because before the podcast, we'd be fighting. And I'm like, and he's like, I don't even want to do it right now. I'm like, I don't either. I'm like, but just suck it up and be professional. And then we'd start the podcast, and we would both, and I would laugh. I'd start the podcast going, oh my God, you guys, we just got in the hugest fight, but we're going to be professional and do this. And we'd be laughing and talking and be fabulous. And then at the end, I'm like, see, it wasn't. So the only times we have ever fought were before and after the podcast. And then after a year of it, I was like, I don't think we should do this anymore. We just yell at each other. But it's because of the technology and like watching him try to do it. I'm like, no, do it like this.
Well, I will say from the outside looking in or outside listening in, whichever way you want to put it, it's a good listen. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
And I think there, according to Apple, there was 62 episodes of it. And yeah, I have only listened to a handful of them so far. I haven't worked my way through all of them, but yeah, it's just, for me, like I said, outside looking in, it's two married people sitting down talking about everything going on in their day and their world around them. And it just feels, the conversations I love are the ones that feel very real. It's a very authentic feel.
Well, it was very authentic. And
yeah, it doesn't feel forced. And that's the great thing about it. So
we had fun doing it. Like while we were actually talking to each other, it was fun. It was the before and after that was hard. And then also, like, I just realized as much as I love certain things in pop culture, he really loves pop culture. He is obsessed with comic books and Marvel movies and DC movies and superheroes and everything. He's obsessed. And so when he starts talking about it, like, I'm good up to a point. But he has this encyclopedic brain of like minor characters and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll start talking about it. And after a while, I'm like, And then we were doing the podcast at one point and he's telling me this whole story. And then I'm like, wait, what'd you say? And he's like, we're doing a podcast. You have to listen to what I say. And I was just sort of like, I can't follow it. It's not interesting to me.
Oh my goodness.
Sounds like my wife and I was trying to get her to watch Dune with me the other day. And I think like 10 minutes in, she's like, how long is this movie? I'm like, click, longer than you're going to want to sit here. So
yeah, exactly.
It's like when she tries to get you to watch a musical.
But the best
it is
part,
like when she tries to get,
I do have to say, everybody knows that Patton Oswalt is a huge nerd. He's a huge fan of all great things. He is basically in every show you've ever seen. But the one thing that I really love, the nerd cred that I have over him, is he is not in the Star Wars universe. He's in the Star Trek universe. He's in the Marvel universe. He has created shows for, like, he's everywhere and he loves Star Wars. And I'm like, haha, I'm in The Force Awakens, I'm in Rebels, I'm in Clone Wars, I'm in Tales of the Empire, blah, 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 blah. And he's just like, so at least I have like a little bit of nerdness that he's like, I am by association in Star Wars.
That's fantastic. Love it.
Yeah. So we have just one silly question left for you.
Oh, I love a silly question.
Yeah. And we started asking this because my daughter, who's 5, asks everybody this question, and we realize grown-ups don't get asked this anymore.
Oh, let's hear it.
It's very rude that we don't.
I know, right? What's your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, that's a really good question. I love dinosaurs. Well, I love the brontosaurus because, of course, they're plant eaters, and I love their necks, and they remind me of. I think they're sweet. I just think they're cute and sweet. I used to love a stegosaurus when I was little. Just I like the shape of him. T-Rex were never my favorite. I feel like I feel like they topple over when you play with them. But I love a brontosaurus.
Okay.
That's a great question.
Well, thank you.
I like your answer.
Yeah, they're plant eaters.
Yeah. And we want to thank you so much for being on the show today, Meredith.
Oh, thanks, John. This is super fun.
Yeah. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you and your work?
I don't really have a website or anything like that, but I'm definitely showing my entire life on Instagram at Meredith Salenger. I post mostly stories, so every now and then you'll get a post, but my stories are like daily. And then I'm in a movie out right now called The Prank, which was in theaters recently and then just went to streaming. It stars Rita Moreno. It's a dark comedy. It's really good. And of course, Tales of the Empire on Disney Plus. Episodes 4, 5, and 6 are about my character. And that's where they can find me. But in the meantime, also, while I'm here, I might as well just tell your listeners about, if you don't know about Patton Oswalt's comic book, Minor Threats, Volume 3 is, they're starting work on Volume 3, and it's have all these amazing spin-offs of a comic book called Barfly. And he's on a show right now, which is going to premiere on Fox in a few days. It's a game show called The 1%, and it's really fun, and it's about trivia, and it's super fun to play with your friends. And so I'm assuming a bunch of your listeners are gamers. It's like a super fun trivia thing. It's not like what year did Columbus do this? It's more like how many grooves are on a 45-inch record. Do you know the answer?
I do not.
I do not either. No.
So this is what the show's about. It's one. A record is just one groove, right?
Okay.
So every record is one groove.
Oh, seriously? It's just one continuous groove?
It's just one continuous, it's a spiral. Because the record, so it's one groove.
That makes a lot more sense, actually.
Right?
I always thought that was like individual rings. I always never could understand how it went from.
It has to.
Well, yeah, but I could never understand how it would go from one point to the next without skipping and hopping.
Man.
That's groovy.
So anyway, that's what's up.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, thank you. We'll make sure to put that information in our notes below so that our listeners can check out your Instagram and check out Minor Threats.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The Prank, which is streaming.
Oh yes, and The Prank. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll include all that.
Awesome.
All right, guys, want to remind you that subscribing is the single most important thing you can do to help our show continue to grow, get amazing guests like Meredith to come by, stop and talk nerdy with us, and have these funny moments for you to be able to listen to. So please subscribe. It helps out more than we will ever be able to really tell you. And be able to, be sure to go check out Meredith's work as well. All the things that we talked about, the Minor Threats comic, the show, the prank, everything. You're going to want to check all those things out. So until next time, America and beyond. Goodbye.
Bye.
Copyright 2024 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.